0.0%, right? This is UDP at the packet loss of 0.0%. So that's fantastic. Resolution, right? This is the smaller little square screen, and this is the big one, right? Frames per second, how many times per second does the screen refresh? Bandwidth cloud encryption algorithm, I'll get into that. Course. Yeah, basically found it on the video settings, statistics. Yeah. It was normally there was a place where you could see that it's UDP, but it must have moved it from here. Let me see if I can see it in Task Manager. So zoom. Yeah, you can see here zoom. Power throttling memory CPU. Hmm. Yeah. It was a clearer example, but they must have moved it or I closed it off. But you can also Google it, right? Zoom uses user datagram protocol UDP to send and receive real-time meeting content like video, voice, and content sharing. Zoom's client prioritizes creating a connection for each type of media using UDP on port. Now, that's another thing, right? Each type of media is sent on its own UDP channel, audio separately, video separately, and then it's quickly assembled. Zoom's client prioritizes creating a connection, right? If that connection can't be established, Zoom will try connecting using TCP on port 801 and then SSL, and then it will switch to UDP. UDP is a connectionless protocol that's faster than TCP, but it sacrifices correctness for speed. This means that some packets may be lost during transmission, but this is acceptable for real-time media. Like I said, you wouldn't even notice. So for real-time connections, streaming, and so on, UDP is great. And we don't actually want, to ensure every packet arrives and everything is checked and everything. That's just too much hassle. You actually want things to happen even faster. So well-known ports, right? Networking, remote access, file transfer, email. You're going to have to know these ports definitely for the exams and for other certs. I'm just not sure why they included these three. It's not that you will never mention them, but pretty rarely. But the others you will definitely encounter again and again. You're going to encounter them so much even during this class that you're probably going to remember most of them just from that. But they'll be in other exams and just again and again, right? DNS, DHCP, Telnet, RDP, HTTP, and so on. RDP is remote desktop, right? I always found this one easy to remember, I guess, because it's a strange number, far from the other numbers, right? 3389. So comparing network configuration concepts. Before we get into that, are there any questions on anything so far? Anybody confused or more than usual? All right. So now everything can be placed in your mind much easier, right? We've gone through so much already. You saw how a computer works from within, how the components integrate, how the network connects, how the packets are assembled and sent around, the underoceanic cables, fiber optics, Wi-Fi. We talked a bit about history of all of this stuff, right? You used all of these things pretty much. And of course, you can do all sorts of things at home, which is also good as well to be able to see all sorts of things, right? You can launch commands. Hopefully, you have access to your own router, right? You can do so many things for A plus because it's really simple, right? You don't need any sort of advanced equipment. One thing, when it comes to troubleshooting, I almost forgot to kind of mention is this kind of age-old technique you've heard and you've seen this again and again to turn something on and off again, right? And that fixes the problem. But why? Why is that the case? What would you say? Why turning something on and off again, whether it's a simple device or a complex device, why does that fix things?
It clears the short-term memory of any commands that are messing it up.
Yes. Yeah, that's very good. Yeah, he said it clears. Can you repeat that?
Yeah, it clears anything in the short-term memory.
Yeah,
So if there's any commands messing it up, it's dead. Start it over.
exactly. Yeah, that's very good. There's other reasons as well. Anybody want to add something?
Does it reset it to default settings basically?
Um, yeah, in the general sense, not totally the factory. If we're talking about a normal reset, you just turn the device on and off again, right? Yeah. But that's on point with what I'm going to say. So what Richard said and then what Pierce said combines. You see, all these systems, whether it's a computer, whether it's a laptop, whether it's your phone, whether it's your watch, especially now with more complex stuff, hell, even a more complex fridge or a more complex a microwave. Basically, what you have is systems on top of systems on top of systems, or systems inside systems, right? With the computer, it's actually pretty obvious, right? You got the operating system, this green one. It's always in the background. If you're playing a game, the computer system is still in the background. If you're teaching people through Zoom, the system's still in the background. If you're drawing stuff in Paint, it's still in the background. If you're watching stuff on YouTube, right, it's still in the background. Right now, as I speak, as I'm doing this class, all sorts of little things are working in the background. If I go here to details and services, there's all sorts of stuff here running in the background, doing stuff, maintaining things, sorting stuff out, services, things connecting, credentials. Some things are just waiting for something to be done later, right? All this stuff. Now, if you go to maybe services and details of, let's say, this, you go to properties, a window opens that's below this window. But anyway, if you go to details and security, you can see the different permissions it has. Read and execute, read, right? The group it belongs to, digital signatures. This is a bit irritating that it opens below. Now let's say you find, I don't know, the printer service, where is it? Ah, there it is, spooler. You go to details, properties, right? You can see that this is an application for the printer. And if you open services and you find the print spooler, it says this service spools print jobs and handles interaction with the printer. If you turn off this service, you won't be able to print or see the printer. Go to properties, and you can see here dependencies. Some services depend on other services, system drivers, or load other groups. If a system component is stopped or is not running properly, dependent services can be affected, right? You can go to, I don't know, sensor data service, properties, dependencies, no dependencies for this one, right? Some of them might have a bunch of dependencies. And one dependency here. Some of their dependencies even have other dependencies, right? If you go to Zoom sharing service properties, right? No dependencies, right? Work folders. Depends on Windows search and so on. So there's these dependencies which interconnect the services. There's the fact that programs running at the same time might interfere with each other, right? There's stuff happening in the background. And so in a complex system, this can start to cause problems. When you reset a machine, whether it's a computer or a simple machine or your watch, you basically reset it back to default, similar to what Pierce said, but you don't reset the settings unless you do a factory reset. You just turn it on and off again, and the whole sequence starts again. And now many of these things are